Chapter 12 of Zadig. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Zadig, or the Book of Fate by Voltaire. Chapter 12. The Rendezvous. Whilst Zadig attended his friend Zadig to Balzora, the priests of the stars were determined to punish him. As all the costly jewels and other valuable decorations, in which every young widow that sacrificed herself on her husband's funeral pile, were their customary fees, 'tis no great wonder indeed that they were inclined to burn poor Zadig, for playing them such a scurvy trick. Zadig, therefore, was accused of holding heretical and damnable tenets in regard to the celestial host. They deposed and swore point blank that he had been heard to aver that the stars never sat in the sea. This horrid, blasphemous declaration thunderstruck all the judges, and they were ready to rend their mantles at the sound of such an impious assertion. And they would have made Zadig, had he been a man of substance, paid very severely for his heretical notions. But in the height of their pity and compassion for even such an infidel, they would lay no fine upon him, but content themselves with seeing him roasted alive before a slow fire. Zadig, though without hopes of success, used all the interest he had to save his bosom friend from so shocking a death, but they turned a deaf ear to all his remonstrances, and obliged him to hold his tongue. The young widow Almona, who by this time was not only reconciled to living a little longer, but had some taste for the pleasures of life, and knew that she was entirely indebted to Zadig for it, resolved, if possible, to free her benefactor from being burnt, as he had before convinced her of the folly of it in her case. She pondered upon this weighty affair very seriously, but said nothing to any one whomsoever. Zadig was to be executed the next day, and she had only a few hours left to carry her project into execution. Now the reader shall hear with how much benevolence and discretion this amiable widow behaved on this emergent occasion. In the first place, she made use of the most costly perfumes, and dressed herself to the utmost advantage to render her charms as conspicuous as possible, and thus gaily attired demanded a private audience of the high priest of the stars. Upon her first admittance into his august and venerable presence, she addressed herself in the following terms: O thou firstborn and well-beloved son of the Great Bear, brother of the Bull, and first cousin to the Dog, these, you must know, were the pontiff's high titles, I come to confess myself before you. My conscience is my accuser, and I am terribly afraid I have been guilty of a mortal sin by declining the stated custom of burning myself on my husband's funeral pile. What could tempt me, in short, to a prolongation of my life, I can't imagine, I, who am grown a perfect skeleton, all wrinkled and deformed. She paused, and, pulling off with a negligent but artful air her long silk gloves, she displayed a soft, plump, naked arm, and as white as snow. You see, sir, said she, that all my charms are blasted. Blasted, madam, said the luscious pontiff, No, your charms are still resistless. His eyes and his mouth, with which he kissed her hand, confirmed their power. Such an arm, madam, by the great Orosmades, I never saw before. Alas, said the widow, with a modest blush, my arm, sir, 'tis probable, may have the advantage of any hidden part. But see, good father, what a neck is here! As yellow as saffron, an object not worth regarding. Then she displayed such a snowy, panting bosom, that nature could not mend it. A rosebud on an ivory apple would, if set in competition with her spotless whiteness, make no better appearance than common madder upon a shrub. And the whitest wool just out of the lava, where she but by, would seem but of a light brown hue. Her neck, her large black sparkling eyes, that languishingly rolled, and seemed as 'twere on fire, her lovely cheeks glowing with white and red, her nose that was not unlike the tower of Mount Lebanon, her lips, which were like two borders of coral, enclosing 2 rows of the best pearls in the Arabian Sea. Such a combination, I say, of charms made the old pontiff judge she was scarce 20 years of age, and in a kind of flutter to make her a declaration of his tender regard for her. Almona, perceiving him enamoured, begged his interest in favour of Zadig. Alas, my dear charmer, my interest alone, when you request the favour, would be but a poor compliment. I'll take care his acquittance shall be signed by 3 more of my brother priests. Do you sign first, however, said Almona. With all my soul, said the amorous pontiff, provided you'll be kind, my dearest. You do me too much honour, said Almona, but should you give yourself the trouble to pay me a visit after sunset, as soon as the star Sheat twinkles on the horizon, you shall find me, most venerable father, reposed upon a rosy coloured silver sofa, where you shall use your pleasure with your humble servant. With that she made him a low curtsy, took up Zadig's general release as soon as duly signed, and left the old dotard all over love, though somewhat diffident of his own abilities. The residue of the day he spent in his bagnio. He drank large enlivening draughts of a water distilled from the cinnamon of Ceylan, and the costly spices of Tidor and Ternate, and waited with the utmost impatience for the uprising of the brilliant Sheat. In the meantime, Almona went to the second pontiff. He assured her that the sun, moon, and all the starry host of heaven were but languid fires to her bright eyes. He put the question to her, in short, at once, and agreed to sign upon her compliance. She suffered herself to be over-persuaded, and made an assignation to meet him at a certain place as soon as the star Algenib should make its appearance. From him she repaired to the 3rd and 4th pontiff, taking care, wherever she went, to see Zadig's acquittance duly signed, and made fresh appointments at the rising of star after star. When she had carried her point thus far, she sent a proper message to the judges of the court who had condemned Zadig, requesting that they should come to her house, and that she might advise with them upon